right, I'll go ahead and send out a tweet. All right, just sent out my tweet. Video is recording, so I'll go ahead and start. So basically, the idea here is I'm going to be demoing this conference app in a box app, and essentially what it is, it's a combination of a React Native app and an Amplify project that allows you to kind of deploy an app that looks like this in just a couple of minutes. And what you can then do is theme it and update it to kind of match whatever event that you're looking to use this for, I guess you'd say. And really, the main idea here is to kind of show the combination of the full stack serverless idea around deploying not only front ends but also back ends. So the idea here, as far as getting started, is I'm going to just be going through the steps here, cloning the project, deploying the back end, and then running the project, and then adding some data, and then theming it. So what we will do is I'm going to go to my command line, and this is going to be where we're going to go ahead and clone the project, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So the first thing we do is we just clone the app, and I'll just copy and paste that here. And this will go ahead and clone the React Native project. So I'll go ahead and change into that directory, and I'll go ahead and open this up in my code editor, and we'll have a look. So starting off, it's a React Native project. So we have this iOS directory, we have the Android directory, and we also have this Amplify folder. And the two main categories that we have enabled with Amplify right now are API and auth. So we have API is our GraphQL API, of course, and then auth is our authentication. And we have authorization set on the API, so if someone isn't signed in, they can't actually access any of our endpoints. In our API folder, we can look at our GraphQL schema. And this is our schema that we're starting off with. We have really, I guess, two main types, a type for a talk and a type for a comment. So if you were deploying this for a custom event, a custom conference, you might modify this, to be kind of like whatever meets your conference. So if you were having a design conference, for instance, you might want to capture the Dribble username or something like that for all of your speakers, and that would go in this talk type, because the talk type captures not only the talk information but the speaker information. So we have the speaker name, speaker bio, we have the Twitter handle, GitHub, all of that information. And then we have a type of comment, and I think this is like one of the most powerful things about this app is that not only are you getting you can deploy any conference app with some static data, with some just hard-coded data, but it's not possible to implement a comment feature. And this is cool because during the conference you can have people chatting with each other essentially in each talk, and we do that by adding this comment type, and then we create a relationship between the talk and the comment by using the @connection directive. And this allows us to create a talk and then create a comment within a talk, and then we can subscribe to comments that are being created by passing in the talk ID. So we have a subscription that we create, a custom subscription for onCreate comment with ID. And this is basically what we use to create the subscription for the unique comments for a unique talk. So when someone creates a comment on a talk, we pass in the talk ID. This way we can only listen to comments on the talk that we're interested in, and we're not going to get a subscription on every new comment created for any talk. So that's the schema. We'll look at the React Native part in just a moment, but basically it's just a pretty basic React Native app where we have a main app entry point and we have like 3 main views. One is for the schedule. You can then navigate into an individual talk from the schedule, so we have a talk as well. We also have a profile that just shows you your username, and you're allowed to then also add in your Twitter and GitHub profile to share it with other conference attendees, and you can sign out from your profile. And then we have the map, which lets you to set the map of the location of the conference. So you can put the Google Maps location data there, and then you can click it and it'll open up in Safari the actual Google map. And we'll take a look at how all that works. So the first thing we want to do is we've already downloaded the app. I guess we'll go ahead and run yarn to go ahead and install the dependencies. And after yarn is run, we'll then go ahead and open up a new window here. And what we'll do is go ahead and initialize the Amplify project. So to initialize the Amplify project, all we need to do is run amplify init. This is going to go ahead and initialize that Amplify project that already exists, the one that we just looked at that has the API and the authentication components, or the authentication API features. So amplify init is going to now go ahead and look inside our Amplify project, and it's going to go ahead and now walk us through all the steps we need to go through to initialize the project. So for the name for the environment, I'll call this Twitch Conf or something like that. For my text editor, I'll choose Visual Studio Code. And this is going to go ahead and set up the base project. And it's going to allow us to set the base project up using an AWS profile that I already have saved. And if you don't have one saved, you can just run amplify configure to go ahead and set one up. So my default profile is US East 1. That sounds good to me. This is going to go ahead and initialize the base Amplify project. So while that's running, I'll go ahead and open up another window, and we'll go back into the project. I have too many projects open. Let's go ahead and open this back up. What we're going to end up doing is theming this app to be a conference other than what I have here as the base project. So if anyone has a conference that they like to see this themed for, just leave it in the chat, and if not, I'll just choose one from one of the ones that I like. So I'll go ahead and open up the theme.js, and this holds all of the theme-specific stuff that you can change. And I think the main things that you could change to kind of make this themable are really the logo and the light logo. So we have a logo for the dark background, and then we have a logo for the light background. So logo is for the dark and logo light is for the light background. And then we have a couple of components, or a couple of, I guess, APIs that we're kind of using across the app. So we want to use the dimensions. And to do that, we can go ahead and get the dimensions, when the app loads, and have that for use later. So we can get the width and the height of the device. And then we have a primary color, a primary light, and a primary dark. And then we have a primary text color. So if you end up going with a dark theme, you might want to make the primary text light and vice versa. And then we have a highlight color. And if you have a dark color theme, you would probably want the highlight to be light, and vice versa. If you have a light color theme, you probably want the highlight color to be something bright or something dark. And then we just export all that stuff, and this way we can just import it from wherever we want. And then if you want to change the global font family, you can do that as well. So we export the colors, we export the typography, dimensions, logo, and all that stuff. That way we can just have this one area to theme the app. So let's go ahead and go back here. After the Amplify project has been initialized, we can now run amplify push. And this is going to go ahead and look in our Amplify project again, see that we have initialized the Amplify project. It's It's going to know that we have the base configuration for an API and for an authentication service. And if we want to deploy this, we can just choose yes, and this will go ahead and deploy it. After that's done, the whole back end is set up and we can run the app locally. Now, because I'm running React Native on a machine that's kind of old, I wouldn't say old, it just kind of sucks, to be honest. I'm going to go ahead and go into an app that I've already run React Native run iOS, and I've already run that Amplify push. That way we can kind of keep going without having to like wait a long time. So I'm just going to go ahead and run iOS. This is basically after running. This is basically alias for React Native run iOS. So let me go ahead and just make that clear by saying React Native run iOS. I just have run iOS alias because I run it so often. And then this is taking into consideration that Amplify push on that other step that we just showed, kind of like already finished. So this is going to go ahead and build the app. I've already built this, so this should not take very long. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and run Amplify console API. So the React Native app ran successfully, and this is kind of what you get when the app loads. We now need to go ahead and sign up, sign in, and then populate the data for the API. So to go ahead and populate the data and look at the API, I'm going to run Amplify console API. I guess I'll run that here to make it a little more visible. Amplify console API. This will go ahead and open the GraphQL API in the Amplify console. I'm sorry, in the AWS console. Okay, cool. Someone gave me a theme or an app that a conference we're going to theme the app for. Cool, thank you. So we'll go ahead and choose GraphQL. This is going to go ahead and open the GraphQL API. Once that's open, we can see that we have this queries editor. This is where we're going to start adding the conference data. But for right now, we just want to have this open. We're going to jump back to the app, and we're going to go ahead and sign up and sign in. So this is kind of the base theme that you get. Nothing too fancy going on. Let's go ahead and sign up. So we sign up. This will go ahead and do two-factor authentication. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my phone and get that verification code off of my email. So we got the verification code. We're signed up. So let's go ahead and sign in. I'm Dabbit3. And we sign in, and all right, boom, we're in. Now, one thing you'll notice is that there's no data, right? Because we haven't populated the API yet. This is, again, a brand new Amplify project. You'll notice that we have kind of a toggle for 2 different days. What I'm working with now on someone in a conference app that we're building using this is we added another toggle for workshops. So there was like 3 days. Workshop was day 1, and then day 2 and day 3. So you would pretty much just switch those November 10 dates for whatever dates your event was. The profile just shows you your username, your email address that you signed up with, and then it also has your Twitter handle and your GitHub handle. So if you wanted to, and I'm basically just populating Dabbit3 as the hard-coded data. So if anyone uses this app, they can follow me on Twitter. But really what you would do is like my Twitter handle, and then my GitHub handle, whatever that is. And then whenever you meet someone in the conference, you can just be like, hey, yeah, I'm on Twitter. Here's my Twitter handle. Here's my GitHub, whatever. The map just has, again, hard-coded data. You go into the map.js and swap out the address with your address, and then the map location, and that will show up. And then when someone wants to kind of like maybe go find coordinates using Google Maps, they can just click there, and that will open up Google Maps. So anyway, so what we want to do though is we want to first populate this API with some real data, and then we want to theme this out. So to populate the API with some data, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our AWS exports file, and we're going to need to go ahead and get the client ID. This is for the wrong app. Let me go ahead and open this app up. We want to get the AWS exports client ID, which is right here. And we're going to basically simulate this React Native client in the API dashboard. So we want to basically log in as the person that we just signed up with. So I just signed up with Dabbit3. I can simulate the client ID by doing that. And then I'll go ahead and just sign in as the user that I just signed up with. So now I'm basically signed in as Dabbit3, and I can go ahead and create mutations. So what I want to do is I want to create a couple of new conference talks. So the way I'm going to do that is I have some hard-coded data. I'm just going to copy and paste some of that over here. So what I want to do is a mutation, create talk. And the inputs, and then I'll just return the ID and the name maybe. So for the talk info, I'm going to go ahead and copy a bunch of stuff right here. We need to pass in, and we don't really need to pass in the ID actually. The ID will automatically be populated, but we'll give the talk a name, a summary, a speaker name, speaker bio, time, timestamp, date, location, and then the speaker's picture. So we go ahead and create our first talk. We go ahead and click that. Looks like the talk was successfully created. So we should be able to go ahead and load our app again and see that we now have one of our talks in there. So we see our first talk. We can now drill down, see the talk info. We can toggle between the 2 days. That talk was on November 11th, so it's in the November 11th field. If we create a comment, then we see that it shows up, and then someone else can come in there and create a comment as well. We'll test that out too in just a second. Let's go ahead and create one more talk for maybe November 10th. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste again. Go ahead and create the second talk. Now, if we refresh, we should see that we have a talk on both days. And then, of course, to continue this app, we would just keep populating, as many talks as we'd like, separating them by day. Let's go ahead and look at how the real-time aspect of this works. Let's go ahead and create a comment on this talk and then look at as it comes through in real time. Again, notice we haven't written any backend code. All of this is serverless stuff. This is all happening through AppSync using that GraphQL schema, the resolvers, and the data sources that were created from it. So what I want to do is create a comment. I'm going to create a comment, and I need the talk ID. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this ID. If I was interacting with this from the app, of course, it would work automatically because we use that data locally in the app. But since I'm doing this manually, I want to go ahead and create a comment, and I'm going to need to pass in that talk ID. So for the inputs, I'm going to need to go ahead and pass in the talk ID. I think I need the created by and let me see whatever else I need there. Just go to the mutation here, create comments. I need to pass in a message. That's what it is. So we'll pass in the message. And the ID will be populated automatically if we don't pass one in on the server. The created at and updated at will be also populated automatically. And if we wanted to pass in a device ID, we could. This would be if you wanted to moderate based on, some other dimension other than the authorization that we already have set up. So I'll return the talk ID and the message and the ID and the created by. All right, so what we're hoping to happen here is when I create this comment, we should see it come through in real time here. So let's go ahead and do that. Create comment. All right, we see that as soon as the comment was created, it came through in real time because, again, we have the subscriptions wired up and that's all working great. So we're about 20 minutes in. Let's go ahead now and theme this using, let's see what someone linked us here to. So kdc.info. Okay, this is nice. I like this color scheme. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and snatch this logo. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that here. And we're going to go ahead and save this as the main logo for our app. And while this is happening, I'm going to go ahead and put this app in the background so when we pull it back up, we can see the difference. So I'm going to go ahead and to this app where we have this conference app in a box. And I'm going to go in my source folder and I'm going to go in assets. And I'm going to save this as logo.png. And in my theme, or actually in my, in my theme, I'm going to first need to go ahead and import the logo from logo.png. Because right now we were importing from logo.jpg. And if we go into our assets, we should see that we have logo.png. So it's part of our project now. The next thing I want to do is I want to get the highlight color of this yellow color. So I'll go ahead and copy that. And our highlight color is going to be this RGB color. Next, I want my primary color, I think, to be like a black. So I'm going to do RGBA 000 maybe 0.9. And then we'll make the primary dark as just black. And then we'll make primary light something like RGBA with a 0.8. All right. So I think that's all the theming that we need to do, to be honest. So let's go ahead and start the app back up, refresh, and let's see what this app looks like for the KCDC 2019 conference. So there we go. We can see that we have, a pretty decent looking change already in just a couple of seconds, right? The one thing I might do here is maybe make that logo look a little better. So where can we find that logo styling? I think we can go into, is there like a header or something like that I made? Yeah, base header. Let's see the styles that we have on this logo. So let's make this width maybe a little taller. So I think the base header might be what we're using here. So the header looks a little bit better there. We might want to center that or something else. Let me see. I think we might be using that header in schedule.js maybe. So here I can go ahead and set that to 200 as well. Hopefully that'll look a little better. That looks better. And if we look at the comments, when we look at the talk details, we see that the theming looks pretty nice off the bat. Discussion, all that stuff looks pretty cool. Of course, the dates and stuff would need to be changed. So, when you're populating your data or you're updating your data, what you would just do, of course, would just be setting that to like whatever date that you're using. So let's go look at the logic that we're using there to kind of like take a quick look. We have another 5 minutes. So let's kind of use that 5 minutes here. So I'm going to go to talk.js. Actually, I'm going to go to schedule.js, I think is where we need to go. So schedule.js, let's look at where that data is coming from our API. We have a talks array that's being populated in component mount. We call the API, we call set state populating the data there. So we have this talks array. And in render, we destructure the talks. We then filter the talks based on the current date that's set in our state. And we check to see if the date is equal to the date that's set in the talk. And then the date is set right here in the date in the state. So we have 2 days, so November 10th, November 11th. Let's go ahead and have a day 0. And we'll call this November 9th. And what we want to do is add like maybe a workshop day. So let's next go to our buttons where we have these November 10th and November 11th buttons. I'm going to create maybe a new button. So here's touchable highlight. I think this is where the buttons are. Let's create a new button. We'll call this, instead of using the day name, because this is going to be day 0, we'll call this, well actually, let me scroll back up and see what I did name this. So it is called November 9th. Instead of saying November 9th, though, let's say workshops. And maybe we'll say November 9th. I don't know if we'll have enough room for this, but we'll give it a shot. And then we'll be filtering by day 0. So any days that are set to November 9th will be basically day 0. And I guess one last thing we need to do is we need to check the styling here, because I believe on these buttons we're styling these based on the width of the current dimensions, and we need to divide that by 3 since we have 3 buttons as opposed to 2. So now we should have a workshop button, which kind of looks really ugly right now. So let me go ahead and remove that November 9th off of there. Okay, cool. So now workshops is there. Now let's add a workshop. I'm going to go here and I'll put this workshop for November 9th. And we'll call this building stuff with Amplify. And I'm not going to worry about all this other stuff. I'll just, leave it as is. Right now, I'll just go ahead and create a new talk. And then now when we refresh, we should see that we have a workshop on the workshop day. So there we go. So we just added a workshops day. So that's kind of how easy it is to kind of customize this thing. I think that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and use this video and put it on YouTube. So if you want to refer to this later, or if you joined in a little late, you can see the beginning there. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I think you probably are if you're watching this. Dabbit3. And yeah, thanks for watching.